So good evening, everybody. I want to welcome you to the May 16, 2024 public hearing of the Calvert County's FY25 budget. So at this time, I'd like to ask Ms. Wood if she would go through the protocol for this evening.
Good evening, Commissioners, and welcome staff and citizens. I am Dawn Wood, Acting Budget Deputy Director of Finance and Budget for Calvert County Government. Tonight is a public hearing required by the Calvert County Code of Public Local Laws. This hearing has been duly advertised, and a certification of publication is in our files that constitutes the record of this hearing. The county has adopted guidelines for conducting public hearings as detailed in Resolution 6-89. If you are speaking as an individual, there is a 2-minute time limit. If you are the designated representative of an organization, you will be allowed 5 minutes. If you would like to sign up to speak, there is a sign-up sheet outside of each courtroom. Speakers from the main BOCC courtroom will speak first, followed by overflow courtrooms number 1 and number 4, respectively. If you are watching and listening on the county website and wish to comment via telephone, there are instructions on the home page. You will be called on after the in-person comments are finished.
So to start this meeting, I'd like to ask everybody to stand and we recite the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance
to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. So my agenda says that I'm supposed to make some welcoming remarks. When I get done, I'm not sure how welcoming some of you may see my remarks, but just want to start out and lay a little bit of groundwork. This budget this year for us is extremely difficult. I think that last year we recognized there were some trends coming that concerned us, and we did take some actions last year trying to start to mitigate the issue that we saw coming. But a lot of you have heard or read in the papers about pilots and revenues. And I'll give you a little bit of background. I don't want to be here all night, but pilot is an acronym, stands for payment in lieu of taxes. So our two largest tax providers in this county are Calvert Cliffs and the gas plant at Cove Point. And those two entities operate under pilots, which are agreements that we make with those entities about the taxes that they pay in Calvert County. And in a pilot, you can negotiate those taxes. And you can negotiate those taxes to be lower or higher, depending on the situation. If you're trying to entice someone to come to your area, you would offer them a credit and reduce their taxes so to get them to come. Or in some cases, you would negotiate higher than taxes. And you would say, who in the world would do that? Well, in my time here at the board, the Calvert Cliffs Nuclear Power Plant and our pilots have always paid us more in revenue than they actually owed in taxes. And so this year we had our two pilots, unfortunately, both expired in the same year, which created a little hiccup in our budget process. That meant that once those pilots expired, if you don't have a pilot in place, then the state comes in, they do a new assessment, and the entity pays the taxes based on that assessment. So because of the impact of those two entities, we hired a professional consultant to come in and help us to fully understand what the value was of those two entities. So based on the guidance of that consultant that we hired, we've taken a position where we do have a current draft of a pilot for Calvert Cliffs, which will increase our revenues for moving forward for the life of that pilot. Unfortunately, the LNG plant at Cove Point has not gone as well. The state has undervalued that entity because of a process that they use, and we are very far apart on what we believe the value of that is. And we have been working through an appeal process, and we've seen some gains from that process, but we still have not come to resolution. which has created a shortfall of revenue from that entity. I think right now we're about 5 million under last year, which may not sound like a lot, but it is a lot when you're in the budget situation that we're in today. So we continue to work through the appeal process, working with that entity, trying to come to some resolution to settle on a pilot. You have also heard that the expiration of that pilot did create a situation for our school system based on the wealth formula, where the state said that now that you have all this new revenue from Cove Point, we don't have to give as much to your school system. So that has also created an impact that we've been trying to work through since January with leadership in Annapolis. So far, we've not gotten any resolution for that. As we go through this presentation tonight, I want you to pay really close attention, because there are some proposals in there that you're not going to like. But I'm just trying to give you some background on how we got to where we are. Didn't happen overnight. Seems like it, but it didn't. COVID created a unique situation for governments. For us, federal government sent lots of money. We used that money to fill gaps and holes. That money's not coming anymore. So we have to take over those costs and expenses. We also, during the same period of time, we lost a lot of volunteers in our emergency services system in Calvert County. We've been very blessed for a very long time to have a 100% volunteer fire EMS system in Calvert County. People didn't even realize that when the ambulance showed up, those people were just volunteering their time. But because of COVID, we lost a lot of volunteers. Demand is up, and the volunteers can't keep up with demand. So 3 years ago, we started paying for career EMS to run those ambulance services and provide that to you all as citizens. Every time we put a career staff in place for 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, it costs $1 million. And we've got right now, I believe, 5 crews, 7 crews. And that's not going to stop. We're going to have to keep adding crews because demand continues to go up. So, and just like you all, our costs of operation have gone up, just like everybody else. And we hear from citizens, we all pay taxes just like you do. Well, my taxes go up every year, and they have been. We're very blessed in Calvert County. Assessments have been increasing, which means the value of your property is going up, creates more revenue for us. That we've been averaging about 3% a year for the last 6 or 7 years, and that generates, you'll see in the presentation later on how much money that generates every year, but it's not keeping up. That's the issue. It's just not keeping up. The superintendent's here. We've had a lot of discussions in the last 4 months about their budget, and I've been here 6 years now. And when I first came here, we had a funding formula that was a formula that determined how much money the school system would get above MOE. MOE, if you don't know, is another acronym, stands for Maintenance of Effort. There's a law in the state of Maryland that says once a county funds a school system at a certain level per student, you can never go below that. So once you give them that much money, you can never go below that per student. So in Calvert County, we've always, at least in my history, given the school system above MOE. We had a funding formula in place. Every year, that formula provided, I tried to remember the other day, I think the most it provided was $3 million above MOE. But it was enough. The system was happy, the system was growing, they were making improvements, everybody was fine. But that's changed. COVID apparently changed that. The school system 3 years ago came in and asked for $9 million above MOE. We gave them 7. Last year they came in, they asked for $24 million above MOE. We gave them 13. Tonight we're going to hear what they're going to ask for this year. When you add all those things together, tax revenues based on increasing assessments alone will not cover rising costs. And people, we get emails, there's been a lot of discussion going on here lately about, the school system, we need to give them everything they ask for, raise my taxes. So in this presentation, there'll be a little detail later on about what that impact is to every one of you and what it takes to raise $20 million. And it sounds like nothing. You know, a penny a hundred is the way, you know, they present and the way the taxes are based. And you say, well, a penny a hundred, what does that amount to? So I think in this presentation, there's a proposal to increase taxes 4 cents a hundred. It's nothing, right? For the average homeowner, it's $150. For the average homeowner, that 4 cents only raises $5 million. Correct? Correct?
That's correct.
$5 million. If we had to raise taxes to generate $20 million to cover the school system's request, that means the average homeowner in Calvert County would have to pay $600 a year in additional new taxes. That's why we have pause. That's why we ask a lot of questions. It's not that none of us don't want to see our kids get the best education they can get. It's that these, at least recent requests that are $15, $20, $24 million, we can't sustain based on an increase in assessments. We can't. So I'm just trying to give you all a little heads up and ask that you pay a little closer attention. Normally in these budget hearings, you know, we kind of just go through the motions and everything falls into place pretty good. I've been very blessed in my time here until this year. Doesn't feel like a blessing this year. Because as I say, we don't want to raise taxes. We pay taxes. We don't want to see the school system suffer. We don't want to see our employees suffer. We don't want to see the county services decline. But we're in a little bit of a pickle. And you'll see in this presentation, this is not a hole we're going to get out of in 1 year. It's going to take 2 years, probably, to get out of this hole. You'll see in this budget presentation where we have eliminated a lot of expenses. We have made a decision we're not going to do any capital improvement projects for the next 2 years unless they are largely grant funded. You will see a school in there because the school system needs to replace Northern Middle School. That's a very expensive project, but at this time, the state has committed to pay for 65% of that school. We are concerned that if we don't move forward with that, we fall out of the state schedule and not sure we could get the funding back at that level to replace that school. So when you see items in capital improvement budget moving forward, they are grant, a lot of those have heavy grant funded so that they're not a cost to the county, and we don't want to miss out on those opportunities. We just talked about an opportunity Tuesday where a project was going to cost $4 million. The state's going to chip in $3 million. It's hard to turn down those opportunities for projects that are going to happen sooner or later. So, but those items in the capital improvement budget that we felt like could be pushed are going to be pushed so that we can save some money to help fill holes. But just wanted to lay a little groundwork this year because, as I said, it is difficult for all of us, and it's going to be difficult for all of you. We're trying to maintain services and the quality of life that you all are accustomed to and expect. But right now, we're in a tough spot. So I just ask for your indulgence and your patience, and we will do our best to work through this. So with that, Mr. Director,
You all set?
Yes.
All right, we're on slide 4. I'm Bruce Miller, the County's Director of Finance and Budget. This slide provides a high-level overview of how the county expends its revenue sources. Before continuing, though, I wish to point out that in order to balance this budget, it will be necessary to use fund balances totaling $11.6 million, 11.5 for the general fund, and 11.7 for the water sewer enterprise funds. Subsequent slides in this presentation will address solutions to correct the revenue deficits.
when looking at the pie chart to the right, government activities account for 48% of the expenditures. Public schools account for 36% of the expenditures. The enterprise funds account for 6% of the expenditures, 3% for the water and sewer fund, and 3% for the solid waste. And finally, the county's special revenue funds account for 10% of county expenditures. Before we move on to this slide, just want to point out, if you are looking at the budget book, there are several different numbers for public schools. I just want to walk real quickly through that. The contribution, general fund contribution, is equal to $154.8 million. But we also include debt service at $4 million and OPEB contributions of $1.5 million, which will equal to the $160 million that you'll see in this slide. And then on top of that is $15.8 million for CIP, and you'll see other amounts in your budget book of $176 million. I just wanted to go quickly through that. Next slide, please.
Good evening. I'm Beth Richmond, Senior Advisor to the Director of Finance and Budget. This slide shows the different revenue sources that make up the $376 million in the general fund revenue. On this slide, you can see that property taxes and income taxes are our two largest revenue sources and represent $332 million out of the total $376 million. Together, that makes up 88% of the county's revenue. That means $8.88 out of every $10 of the expenses that Don will speak about next are funded with these two sources.
Beth just reviewed the general fund revenues, and I will provide an overview of the general fund expenditures, which constitute administrative and operational tasks of Calvert County government. As you can see in the slide, the schedule and chart are visible representations of the different categories that reflect the primary core services essentially paid by the taxpayer, totaling $215.8 million. The largest at 26% is public safety, followed by transfers at 16%, pensions and insurance at 15%, then general government at 14%. The remaining 29% consists of public works, debt service, state and outside agencies, parks and rec, museums, economic development, community resources, and other post-employment benefits. For every dollar the county spends out of the general fund, 41 cents goes to the county's schools, 31 cents is spent on operating expenses, 15 cents is spent on pensions, insurance, and debt service associated with capital improvements. Then the remaining 13 cents covers transfers to other county funds and other agencies such as the Calvert Public Library, Calvert Marine Museum, and the non-debt portion of the Capital Improvement Plan, or CIP, to name a few. Next, Bruce will review current projected deficit.
Thank you. Just to provide a crosswalk between where we began the process and where we are today. If you recall, when we presented the staff recommended budget, there was a projected $28 million deficit. Since then, we've been able to evaluate and adjust revenue estimates and also work on the expenditure side. So we are currently at $11.5 million deficit. If you see on the slide, projected revenues are at $364 million and projected expenditures are at $376 million. At this time, I would like to walk through how we were able to decrease that $28 million deficit down to the current deficit of 11.5. The first side of the ledger, if you will, we looked at was the revenue side. So the first adjustment that you'll see on the slide is we revised the real estate tax estimate by approximately $6 million. We accomplished this by augmenting the evaluation process. So rather than looking at a 4% increase in each of the districts, assessment districts across the board. We actually use the State Department of Assessment and Taxation, known as SSTAT values, and we pulled in 1/3 of that adjustment, which is allowed by law. Because the increased valuations from the SSTAT exceeded 12%, we were able to pull those excess revenues into the revenue stream. The second adjusted revised the consolation payment by $3.7 million. And as President Hans noted, that this was due to a prospective agreement between the county and Constellation totaling that amount. The third adjustment was a revised estimate based on the Berkshire Hathaway Energy by $5 million. As a result of the county's ongoing efforts to maximize its tax revenues, the commissioners appealed SSTAT's initial tax assessment, which subsequently led SSTAT to increase its valuation by an additional $400 million. This increase in value translated in $5 million in revenue.
So Bruce, can I have a second?
Yes, sir.
So just to give you a little more history about Berkshire Hathaway, which is the Code Point facility. In our last year of our pilot, I believe we got $64 million in revenue from the pilot. When SSTAT did their first assessment of Berkshire, it came in and said they only owed us $54 million. We appealed that, as I mentioned earlier, and we did gain $5 million from that first appeal. So we still have a ways to go, but just so you all understand where we are and why it's shown an increase when we've said that we've actually gotten a decrease. Thank you, Bruce.
And the fourth increase reflects the county's initiative to collect Airbnb and verbo tax on associated property rentals. The next slide, I think, tells an amazing story. Although the county's fiscal year 25 budget increased the operations budget as compared to 24 on the operating side, and I'll get to that in a little bit. The operation budget in itself decreased by $4.5 million. So to walk you through that, there are expenditures increases in this budget. That's the $406,000 in staffing and the $4.2 million of cost and transfers. I would like to point out that the $406,000 is primarily public safety increases, but which are reimbursed, if you will. So it's a net zero to the budget. Revenues went up to pay for it, so it's really a net zero. But when you're looking at the expense side, it had to be incorporated into the analysis. The other increases of $4.2 million included pension costs, transfers to other funds, to revenue funds, et cetera. What I really would like to emphasize is, even though we have a $4.6 million increase, we went back into the budget and decreased $9.1 million. That included eliminating all vehicles purchases of $2.1 million. We did a 3-year analysis for both the salary and operating expense account line numbers. We looked at the attrition in the salary side, so we did a 3-year analysis and looked at what was budgeted versus what was expended, and we pulled in $3.3 million. Same type of analysis for the operating. We did a 3-year look back, compared what was appropriated and spent, and recognized that there was approximately $2.2 million in all departments that we could decrease those budgets by. And then finally, the health insurance we reduced by $1.5 million. The staff recommended budget had increased the health insurance appropriation by $1.5 million because on average, health insurance costs can go up 10% a year. We're fortunate enough that our health insurance advisors said our current rates are appropriate to cover expenses. add that, all those up, and we get $9.1 million. So 9.1 less the 4.6 gives you the net change of 4.5 between budgets, between fiscal year 24 and 25. So on slide 10, let me catch up. In order to balance the county's projected $11.5 million revenue deficit, the county does need to consider potential solutions, as Commissioner Hans suggested in the beginning. So there's different revenue enhancements to be considered. Some are immediate revenue enhancements, but others are more of a implementation strategy that will bridge 26 and 27. I'd like to say that, or echo the comment that this is a multi-year issue. We're not going to get out of it in year one. So we have to have a strategy that looks not only at fiscal year 25, but 26 and 27 also, I'm afraid to say. So the first suggestion is to increase real estate tax. For each penny increase, it yields approximately $1.4 million, $1.5 million of additional revenues. The solution contained herein is recommending a 4 penny increase, which will yield $5.8 million, and on the average assessed home of about $380,000, that equates to a $152 increase per year. The next area that I'd like to look at or recommend is a 2% increase in the income tax. That would yield $3.6 million in year one and $7.2 million in years thereafter. Another area that we need to look at are local receipts. Local receipts being primarily a fee structure. We have a little bit of additional revenue that we've put into the budget, but I think over the next year, we have to do a more comprehensive approach, look at the fees in essence, and I know there are policy decisions that have to go with this, but fees should equal the cost of providing that service. So that's going to be an initiative that we're going to have to implement over the next year, and then again, that's more of the long term, again, 26, 27 out years. Another area that I would like to put it on the table is a $5.4 million repayment of a loan from the Water and Sewer Enterprise Fund back to the general fund. And again, it should be noted that that's a one-time revenue source. So next year, we won't have that revenue. So therefore, again, the need to look at long-term solutions to augment that $5.4 million in the latter years. If you look at legislative initiatives, there are several different ideas of ways that we can potentially enhance revenues, but again, these will take legislative action on our part, working with the state legislators in Annapolis. Another area that we have not looked at and is not part of this budget, turn this slide for me, is incorporating the COLA and STEP. If you look at this slide here, a 1% COLA increase for just the general fund is $764,000. All funds throughout the county, which includes the enterprise funds and special revenues funds, would increase the impact to $970,000. Those additional expenditures would be, again, covered by the fees associated with those activities. The STEP, same analysis for the general fund. One STEP is equal to approximately $1.8 million. All funds, $2.3 million. So that's a conversation that we need guidance on as we move forward.
Bruce, back on slide 12,
Slide 12?
or back 10, sorry.
Yes, sir.
Slides and pages are different numbers. You didn't mention chapter 86.
Oh, I'm sorry. The print's so darn low.
You printed
Oh,
it.
old eyes. Thank you, sir. Chapter 86, right now, the county is evaluating Chapter 86. Chapter 86 is the personnel, essentially the personnel bylaw that covers salary pay structures, if you will, overtime, that type of stuff. The recommendations that are being currently reviewed and discussed, if everything was approved, approximates to about $1.7 million of savings over a 10-month time, allowing a lead time to implement for July and August, and then start actually managing to the recommendations beginning in September. I should note that these are still being discussed, so that's why it's other considerations rather than being part of the budget. So with that, we talked about the step and COLA, and then the other remaining unknown at this time is the Board of Education's budget ask, if you will. We received the presentation at 5:40 today, so we really have not had time to evaluate it in any substantive way. So with that, I would like to turn the presentation back over and start talking about special revenues and enterprise funds.
This slide displays an overview of special revenue funds which provide additional services above and beyond that are supported by tax revenue. These funds must receive most of their revenues from dedicated sources such as user fees rather than transfers from other governmental funds. The total expected in special revenue funds is $35.3 million, which consists of Parks and Recreation, the golf course, excise tax, funds within planning and zoning, economic development, human services, Calvert Public Library, and the Calvert Marine Museum. An example is the Land Preservation Fund, which collects its revenue in the form of recordation taxes and critical area fees, which are collected to cover the county costs of replacing forest cover in appropriate areas. Both land preservation and critical area fall under planning and zoning. Parks and Recreation and the golf course funds are other examples of special revenue funds. Revenues are collected in the form of program fees, concessions, camping, general admission, and green and cart fees. These funds provide opportunities to residents and visitors at various locations throughout Calvert County. Next, I will discuss grant revenues. In FY25, we expect to receive a total of $8.5 million in grant revenue. $2.3 million for general government, $3.8 million for human services, and $2.4 million for public safety. These funds are used to support and enhance programs offered throughout the county. An example of grant revenue that falls under general government is the Adult Treatment Court, which entails intensive treatment and weekly case management meetings and monthly judicial reviews. Treatment courts have been statistically proven to be the most cost-effective way to combat substance abuse problems and therefore positively impact the criminal justice system. Under Human Services, examples are transportation grants, which support Calvert County's public transportation system. This grant funding provides funding for purchases of new buses, the maintenance of existing buses, operation of special bus routes to improve local access to local employment, and funds the operation and extension of existing bus routes and hours of service. Under public safety, examples are Homeland Security grants, which provide funds to enhance the ability of the county to prevent, deter, respond to, and recover from threats and incidents of terrorism in the framework of regional cooperation and planning. This grant program integrates the state Homeland Security program and the Law Enforcement Terrorism Preventive Program. Next is Beth with the enterprise funds.
The next 4 slides cover the county's 2 enterprise funds. This means that funds are expected to collect enough revenue to support their operations. The first fund we will see is the Water and Sewer Fund. $13.7 million is the current revenue estimate for the Water and Sewer Fund. If proposed fee changes are approved, the water and sewer revenue will be higher in the adopted budget. As you can see on this slide, 73% of the revenue is from charges for services, such as capital connection fees. This is a one-time fee when a new user is added to the system, and user fees charged for everyday use of the water and sewer systems. 25% of the revenue are intra-fund transfers. These are transfers within the departments of water and sewer. This $3.4 million of transfers makes up a large portion of the other expenses category that you will see on the next slide. This slide shows the breakdown of water and sewer's expenses totaling $13.7 million. While the slide shows multiple buckets for the different types of expenses, the purpose of these expenses is threefold. 1, maintenance to keep the systems running smoothly. 2, repairs to the system if something goes wrong. And 3, enhancements to the overall infrastructure. The second enterprise fund is the Solid Waste and Recycling Fund, with estimated revenue of $15.6 million. As with water and sewer, there are proposed fee changes that will increase the adopted revenue if they are approved. As you can see on this slide, 95% or $14.8 million of the estimated revenue is from charges for services. This is such as annual fees, tipping fees, which is based on the weight of landfill waste, and various recycling fees. The complete list of fees can be found on the county's website. This slide shows the breakdown of the $15.6 million in expenses which are used to run the county landfill at Appeal and all 6 of the resident convenience centers. The largest expense, contract services at 62%, supports the removal of waste and debris out of Calvert County. The second largest expense is salaries and benefits, and this is for the staff that support the landfill and the convenience centers. Next up is Danielle Russell to discuss the capital improvement plan.
Good evening. Good evening, Danielle Russell, Grants Management Program Specialist with the Office of the County Administrator. The capital improvement plan is a multi-year planning and budget process that assists the county in prioritizing current and future needs. The CIP has been developed to identify and adequately plan for future expansion, renovation, and construction. The Board of County Commissioners adopts the first year of the plan as the capital budget. A capital project encompasses a wide range of initiatives, including the purchase of land, construction of a new facility or building, renovation of an existing facility or building, or purchase of a major piece of equipment. The county has further defined a capital project to include a value greater than $25,000 and has a multi-year budget. The CIP comprises 2 project groupings. The first is capital fund projects, which include education, public facilities, communications and media relations, technology services, planning and zoning, recreation resources, transportation, and public safety. Financing for these projects comes from the county's general fund, also known as PAYGO, the sale of general obligation bonds, also known as debt, and grants. Funding for schools, roads, and recreation projects also comes from the collection of excise tax. The debt payments associated with the sale of bonds are accounted for in the general fund operating budget. In alignment with the Commissioner's priority of fiscal responsibility, the capital fund projects have been reduced by 47% from the staff recommended budget. Additionally, on April 30th, the Commissioners directed staff to move the PAYGO funding to debt funding in the Commissioner recommended budget, with the intent to adjust the appropriation after financial reconciliation and audit. The second project grouping is enterprise fund projects. Enterprise fund projects include solid waste, water and wastewater sewerage. Improvements in the enterprise funds are paid from user fees, also known as PAYGO, the sale of general obligation bonds, capital connection fees, and grants. These projects are accounted for in the enterprise funds, and the debt payments associated with the sale of bonds or loans are budgeted for in the enterprise fund operating budgets.
The following two slides pertain to revised fees for various departments of Calvert County government. The Department of Planning and Zoning's aggregate increase is approximately $82,000. Parks and Recreation is currently analyzing their fee schedule, so their impact is yet to be determined. Based on a recently completed rate study, Water and Sewer's aggregate increase is approximately $1.7 million, and solid waste is $330,000. The complete list of fees, including proposed revisions, can be found in the FY 2025 budget Fees and Tax Rates Appendix. At this time, I'd like to turn it over to Dr. Andre Tousell, Superintendent of Calvert County Public Schools.
Good evening. Thank you for your time today to recap the Board of Education's proposed fiscal year 25 budget. Our budget priorities as we developed the FY 25 budget were to ensure a safe environment to support academic, emotional, and behavioral needs of our students, to provide a curriculum, instructional resources, support for students, and professional supports for teachers and support staff, to maintain our efficient, responsive business operations, to recruit and retain highly qualified staff, and provide ongoing services to employees. Also to provide technology to support the classrooms, schools, and offices by maintaining our future-ready laptop and iPad program and student and finance management systems. We also want to honor our negotiated agreements and vendor commitments. And as you know, we must implement the requirements of Blueprint for Maryland's Future, understanding the 5 pillars of Pillar 1 being pre-K accreditation, Pillar 2, the development and implementation of a career ladder with a minimum salary at $60,000 with incentives and payment for the National Board certification. Pillar 3, having high-quality instructional materials, payment for AP testing, dual enrollment costs, and career technical education certifications, the development of a college and career readiness pathways, and ultimately in Pillar 4, support for students with disability, and ESOL, Family Engagement Coordinator. And as you know, we're also implementing our new Calvert County Public Schools strategic plan in the upcoming year. This has been a challenging budget year for Calvert County Public Schools since we received the budget shortfall from the state of Maryland. As you can see on the screen, Calvert County Public School is the only school system that realized a major reduction in our state aid, being $22.5 million. Calvert County Public School also received the largest percentage reduction in money per student in the state of Maryland at 19.3%. Just as a recap, in January, the original budget presentation indicated that we would receive state aid comparable to fiscal year 24 in the revenue chart. However, Calvert County Public School was notified the week before the budget presentation on January 25th that we were to receive $22.5 million less in state aid than fiscal year 24. And ladies and gentlemen, that was a shock to the system. Immediately as a superintendent, I sprung into conversation and collaboration with the Maryland State Department of Education, including meeting with our current state superintendent, Dr. Carrie Wright, and the assistant state superintendent of finance, Ms. Donna Gunning. Additionally, I spoke with the Public School Superintendent Association of Maryland Executive Director, Mary Pat Fannin, and the President of the State Board of Education, Clarence Crawford. Also, I had a meeting in Annapolis with our Senator, Michael Jackson, and also had multiple ongoing conversations with our county commissioners, specifically President Hance, Vice President Grasso, and County Commissioner Mark Willis. Calvert County Public School confirmed that our state aid would be reduced by $22.5 million down to an overall state aid revenue of only $86,991,385. In January, we identified $5 million worth of cut immediately to get our projected expenditures for fiscal year '25 to $10 million over fiscal year '24. With the information of this unforeseen and unprecedented cut to our revenues, we returned to the drawing board to identify the best strategy possible to maintain the integrity of Calvert County Public School as a top 5 school district in the state of Maryland. Our executive leadership team came back to the table to address the shortfall and included everything, including the $5 million previous cut, in an effort to save as many staff positions as possible while making additional cuts. Our approach, first and foremost, was to protect the classroom by minimizing impact on students and minimizing impact to staff. We scrutinized our expenditure budget requests and approved only one new position, which was a blueprint mandate, the Family Engagement Coordinator for ESOL. We determined that no grant-funded staff positions will be moved into fiscal year '25 budget, and we collaborated with our administrative staff on cost reduction ideas. As you know, in our previous meeting, we asked for an additional $10 million to maintain the integrity of Calvert County Public Schools. By receiving the $10 million from our county, we will still be able to provide the high-quality educational programming for all of our young people in Calvert County. It is important to note that 80% of our budget goes towards salary and wages. As stated previously, the last thing we want to do is negatively impact students and staff. This budget was developed in good faith to serve our community to the best of our ability, and our goal is to get the maximum academic return on investment on every dollar spent. The $10 million that we identify are listed here, which are advanced placement pathway reduction, cut to all workshop pay, cut to all workshop registration fees, reduction of our deans, district-wide furlough days, IEP facilitators, increasing class sizes, limiting dual enrollment courses, possibly cutting middle school athletics, offsetting our bus contractor CPI escalator by 3.3%, reducing our general instructional assistant positions, a reduction in high school secretary position, a reduction in middle school positions at 3 of our middle schools. Next slide. Also, a reduction of our unfilled counselor vacancies, reduction of assistant principals, supervisor of instruction, bus driver hours from 8 hours to 7, reduction of central office part-time custodian, also specialists in the central office, reducing our gifted and talented educators, reducing our IT staff, reducing our pre-K instructional assistants, reducing the online programming to only our music appreciation, Health 1, Health 2, Spanish 1 in summer school, and no longer offering Foundation of Computer Science in summer school. Reducing warehouse staff and a shift from middle school laptop program in 6th grade from a 1-to-1 ratio to a 1.2. So that $10 million ask will allow us to keep these opportunities in place for our young people and staff. Next slide, please. The reason why there wasn't an overall ask, as you know, we were in contract negotiations. We did estimate that $6.6 million in contract negotiation would support us to provide funds for our negotiated wage and salary increase, our FICA costs, our retirement costs, our life and accidental death and dismemberment insurance costs, and our workers' compensation insurance costs. I would like to share that on May 8th, last Wednesday, we did reach a tentative agreement with our Calvert Education Association. And as of 6 o'clock today, when this presentation was done, we were still negotiating, but 6 o'clock p.m. today, we did also come to a tentative agreement with the Calvert Association of Education Support Staff. Next slide. I want to give a little bit of insight with regards to negotiation. In our previous budget, as you know, we asked for $10 million with an understanding that this number would increase based on contract negotiations. As I just shared with the breaking news, we do have tentative agreements with both of our bargaining units, but I want to give you a little bit of history. This is May of 2024. In 2016, an agreement was not reached until August of that year with the Calvert Education Association, and they were, an agreement was not reached until September of that year with the Calvert Association of Education Support Staff. In 2020, both CEA and K's agreement was not reached until the last week of June. So I want to give a little insight, the fact that we had the opportunity to come to an agreement today with both of our bargaining units is an absolute blessing for the system to get a number. The reason why in the past, we always had fund balance. We could, come to a contract and we can always cover that with our fund balance, but we don't have the same. Next slide. Understanding our total revenue shortfall, we have determined that we are using $20 million of our fund balance. Remember, we have $22 million less from our state, so we're going into our fund balance to cover as much of that as possible. We are requesting an increase from our county of $16,600,000 over fiscal year '24, which will close the revenue shortfall, minimize disruptions to our organization, students, staff, and families alike, and fund our tentative negotiated agreements. All stakeholders of Calvert County Public School deserve the best education system possible. And with this recommendation, I'm confident that we will maintain student achievement and academic excellence while also being a great place to have a career. I'd like to thank you so much for your overwhelming support and engagement through this rigorous and complex funding issue for fiscal year '25.
So thank you, Dr.
Thank you.
Townsend.
Thank you.
Appreciate it. I do have a question.
Yes, sir.
We don't normally do this either, but the 10 million you say you have to have, if you don't get it, you're gonna make all those cuts.
Yes, sir.
Why are you 10 million short? You had 10 million to pay for it in '24. Why won't you have 10 million to pay for it in '25?
Good evening. There are a number of reasons.
Could you introduce yourself, please? I know who
Yes,
you are,
thank you.
but.
Hi, my name is Scott Johnson. I'm the Chief Financial Officer for Calvert County Public Schools. There are a number of reasons for our fiscal challenges for FY '25. Of course, in addition to the $22.5 million state aid cut, we also have depletion of the ESSER funding this coming fiscal year, as is true with school districts across the nation. In addition, we have inflationary cost pressures, just as the county does.
I'm sorry, could you explain that first item that you said everybody's losing their money? What is that program, please?
The ESSER funding, it's a type of federal funding that was provided to many school districts and counties across the country, including Calvert County Public Schools. Consequently, we won't have that funding. We'll be depleting that funding over the next fiscal year. And so those costs will need to be absorbed by the general fund or the unrestricted fund, or we'll need to discontinue services depending on the types of costs.
So what are those services?
We use those funds for a variety of programs. We've used the funds to purchase laptop computers. We've also used it for a variety of grant-related or expenditures this past few fiscal years, including a breadth of programs, also including summer school transportation, and we'd be happy to provide a more complete list if you'd like.
Thank you. We
You're
would
welcome.
appreciate that.
Can I ask you a question? I have a couple of questions. How many certified teachers do you have at the BOE who are working at the BOE? Is it around 27,
Roughly.
roughly?
Yes, ma'am, about 20.
Do you ever consider putting them in the classroom?
Absolutely. We put all options on the table. Our ultimate goal is to minimize the disruption to student achievement as much as possible. And we didn't think that was the best option to maintain the integrity of Calvert County Public Schools.
What is left in your fund balance after you take the 20 million?
Great question. That leaves us with maybe $7.5 to $8 million remaining.
Okay, and we have asked you repeatedly for a line item budget. When can we expect that?
For FY '25,
24.
for '24, we provided a copy late last summer or early in the fall. We'd be happy to provide another
Maybe
copy.
we need 25.
No, we do need 25. The budget, that your ask in your presentation is for 25, and we'd like to see a line-by-line budget to see where the monies are in fact going. and we've asked for that repeatedly, been promised it, and not given it. When can we expect that?
As you know, the budget is still in development because we're,
That's okay. We've been in development too, and we've been struggling with an awful lot, losing a little bit of sleep over it, but we're still throwing line by line out there so we can see where we are, where we want to be. I'd also like to ask you all, next year, I do want the line by line budget, but I'd like to ask you all next year to start with a zero balance budget. That will get rid of pork, that will show you exactly what you need. To keep adding on and adding on is not good budgeting. Zero balance budget, keep it in mind, because that's what we're going to want.
Yes, ma'am.
Thank you.
Mr. President,
Yes.
if I could, the Board of Education's budget was actually due March 15, so it cannot still be in development by state statute. I'm not sure what was meant by that.
So officially, the only request we have is for 10 million?
Officially, I don't know that you have a request from the Board of Education, which is by 5-102 of the education article, every county board, not the superintendent's budget, but the board's budget shall be submitted in writing to the county commissioners on a date either on or after March 1 or as may be requested by the county fiscal authority. That request was made in March, that it be submitted by March 15 in writing.
The superintendent was here, I can't remember when, a while back.
Yeah.
And made a request.
I believe that was part of the superintendent's budget request that was incorporated into the staff recommended budget. But that still would not have been from the Board of Education. That was not approved by the Board of Education.
We'll have to go back and
Yeah, the
verify.
superintendent's budget was approved by our Board of Education. This is the Board of Education's proposed budget.
Okay, my mistake.
It's okay.
I think that all fell into place.
Yes,
like
it did.
was supposed to.
Yeah, we did.
Yes. All right, thank you, sir.
You're welcome.
Thank you. Guess that brings us to public comment?
The Commissioner's budget is available on the county's website, and books are available for viewing at all Calvert County Library locations. After receiving feedback from tonight's public hearing, the BOCC will meet with county leadership and directors and work towards the adoption of the budget, which is scheduled for Tuesday, June 4th. The floor will now be open for public comment, starting with speakers from the main BOCC courtroom, followed by overflow courtrooms number 1 and number 4 respectfully, followed by virtual callers. As a recap of the public hearing protocols, if you are speaking as an individual, there is a 2-minute time limit. If you are the designated representative of an organization, you will be allowed 5 minutes. If you are watching and listening on the county website and wish to comment via telephone, there are instructions on the homepage. You will be called on after the in-person comments are finished. Our first speaker is Sheriff Ricky Cox, representing Calvert County Sheriff's Office.
Good evening, Commissioners.
Good evening.
Sheriff Cox representing the Sheriff's Office, Public Safety, and Fire and EMS too as well. I'm a volunteer fireman, so thanks for the shout out. They do a great job as well as our dispatchers, and we've been spending a lot of time together. As Commissioner Hanson and I were just with the Girl Scouts presenting the Golden Sir Awards. I know they really appreciate that, but I know it's been frustrating. It's been difficult. I think we're all here because of the cuts that the state and the governor have imposed on our kids, unfunded mandates through our educational system that's put on the backs of the county. I think that there's a lot of reasons why we're here, and it makes it difficult from everybody to Dr. Townsend to me. Since I've been elected, my operational budget's been cut about roughly 20%. And really, right now, I haven't been able to make those decisions where those cuts are made. And as the elected sheriff, I think that's appropriate request given to the commissioners from me. We meet about once a week, and I've been proven to be responsible with my budget. I've saved money in my budget, and you guys have seen that once we do meet once a week. And the boards have made many changes. We've made work day, stuff like that, that's been imposed. And a lot of money was spent on that too as well, and we worked with that too as well. And my staff has done a great job with that. But surrounding areas I have been in many sheriff meetings throughout the state are bolstering their law enforcement. Right now, it seems like we're cutting law enforcement. And I know it's difficult, and I know our men and women do a great job out there. And we live in a great place because, as you see, we've been busy the last couple of weeks. Have you seen the news lately? And our citizens not only help us, but they help us solve cases. They're right there. They're on the phone telling us where crime is happening, and they help solve crime. And it's good to me as a sheriff seeing that. And a lot of citizens that we meet, PG County, Anne Arundel County, they love the way that we police, and they appreciate that what we do here. And a lot of the commissioners, we've heard the term safest county in the state, and I think that it's the reasons why our men and women every day put that uniform on, and we appreciate everything you do. As Police Week we're ending right now, but these cuts not only set me up for failure, but I think it's dangerous and fiscally irresponsible for the board, and I'm just making my recommendation on that. We worked really hard on that market adjustment and getting up to par to other police departments, as we're seeing they're getting pay increases, COLAs and all that, as I've been in talk with most of you about those situations. But and again, I just don't want to balance the budget on the employee. And I think Commissioner Hance has already made that comment before in the past too as well. And tonight I'm just asking to fully fund the sheriff's office. I'm asking for the men and women to get the step-in COLA that they deserve because they do work hard out there. The 1% COLA, as was mentioned in the meeting today, presented on a new deputy that would not even cover that $600 increase in taxes that may be coming down the pipe as our taxes may be raised. And just to put some light on it, St. Mary's County is right around 28% of the county's budget. As I've talked to Sheriff Hall all week today, and we're sitting right now at 9.9%. And we're doing more with less, and I just ask that we get fully funded in our budget to keep our citizens safe. And it's still my goal and my mission to put every deputy in every school, and I'm there. I put 4 since I've got elected as sheriff in our schools without any funding. I've been working with Dr. Townsend and their budget too as well to have 2 on their side, and with the commissioners too as well. I appreciate that, and I want the citizens to know that I'm still working on that as well. So working hard, and I think a deputy with the relationships that we're gaining in our school system with those deputies, I think is working out well. So, and Dr. Townsend and I are working on security in our schools, and as we walk the schools there the last couple of weeks, and Commissioner Hance, thank you for doing that. But that's all I have tonight. And I just thank everything you do. I know it's difficult. I've worked well with this board, and I appreciate everything y'all do.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Next, we have a designated speaker for the County Employee Recognition Committee.
Good evening, Commissioners. My name is Katie Lohman, and I'm speaking tonight for the Coward Employee Representative Committee. On behalf of the county employees, we would like to extend, I knew they were going to have to lower it. On behalf of the county employees, we would like to extend our gratitude for your consideration and support of possibly implementing a 1% cost of living adjustment and a mid-year step. We understand the FY25 budget process has posed unique challenges and financial constraints necessitating difficult choices. The CERC does not believe that using the proposed salary savings from the Chapter 86 revisions is a prudent decision. The anticipated changes allowing for these cost savings has not yet been approved, and new changes have been proposed since these savings were initially considered. Relying on these unconfirmed savings could create financial instability and uncertainty. It is important to acknowledge that the current economic environment presents substantial challenges for all of us. The cost of living has been increasing at a rate higher than the proposed 1% COLA, with significant rises in essential expenses such as groceries, housing, and fuel. Additionally, the county is facing the possibility of raising real estate taxes and income taxes. This means county employees, the majority of whom reside within the county, will be impacted by these tax increases, making the 1% COLA insufficient. For context, the state of Maryland retirees are receiving a 4.16% COLA, and Social Security is providing a 3.2% COLA. The economic climate over the last decade required some previous boards to withhold COLA and step increases for 5 years. It is only in the past few years that this gap has been rectified, and the employees sincerely appreciate and thank you for that. We are concerned that we could regress into a similar scenario if inadequate COLA and step increases are not granted. The county employees are the backbone of our community services, and their well-being is paramount. While we recognize the 1% COLA is a positive step, we urge you to consider a more generous COLA, which is aligned with the current rate of inflation. This would provide financial relief and stability for our employees who are integral to the county's operation and success. Thank you for your ongoing support and understanding. Your leadership is crucial as we navigate these challenging times and strive to make sensible financial decisions for the benefit of our employees and community. Thank you.
Thank you.
Our next speaker is Barbara Warner, speaking as an individual.
Good evening, Commissioners.
Good evening.
My name is Barbara Warner. I have been a resident of Calvert County for 50 years and a county employee for almost 32 years. I have been here many times, not with you five, but with others. Anytime the budget needs to be balanced, county employees lose a benefit. In my 32 years, these are the ways it has been done in the past. Retirement plans were changed 3 times in my tenure. Reduction in retiree health insurance benefits. Health insurance choices have been eliminated. Employees are forced to use a PBM, which is a pharmacy benefit manager, which is CVS. Lost steps and COLAs. And now the worst of all, proposed revisions of Chapter 86. These are just Band-Aids. They didn't stop the bleed. When will this cycle end? County employees don't have anything left to give. We are run down and discouraged. Chapter 86 revisions, as presented, will cripple essential services like our 911 dispatchers, career EMS, and law enforcement. I respectfully request that no portion of Chapter 86 cost savings be included in the FY 2025 budget. Thank you.
Thank you.
Next speaker is Matt Potey, speaking as an individual, followed by Sabrina Bergen, speaking as an individual.
Good evening, Commissioners. I've devoted the past 28 years to Calvert County Public Schools, and I'm incredibly thankful and appreciative for what this county has done for me and my family and all the families who reside here. I remember the time when Calvert was the fastest growing county in the state, marked by increasing student enrollment and plenty of financial resources. However, demographic shifts and an ongoing aging population have reshaped our landscape and budgets in recent years. Of particular concern is the declining percentage of the county budget allocated to CCPS over the past decade. In 2015, CCPS received 41% of the county's total operating budget. That figure decreased to 36% in 2020 and is now proposed to drop even further to 31% in 2025. This downward trend continues to undermine the quality of education CCPS provides. Restoring funding levels to previous percentages would not only meet our budgetary needs, but exceed them. For example, restoring the allocation of 41%, as it was back in 2015, would provide CCPS with $212.5 million next year. So I ask, why has the allocation of funding decreased from 41 down to 31% over the past 10 years, and how does that reflect a commitment to our schools and the families they serve? When looking at the county government's operating budget versus the school systems, in 2015, CCPS received $8 million more than county government received for its operations. Fast forward to 2025, and the proposal is for CCPS to receive $55 million less than county government will receive for its operations. The budget for county government has increased $99 million from 2015 to 2025, an increase of 85% in 10 years. Over the same time period, the school system's budget has increased by 28%. Yet we continue to hear how the increases for the school system have been astronomical. But whose budget has increased the most? County government with an 85% increase since 2015, or CCPS with a 28% increase? Our school system plays a crucial role in shaping our community's future. However, inadequate funding jeopardizes safety standards, staff retention, blueprint compliance, and student achievement. It's imperative that we uphold our commitment to excellence and invest in the future of our students. Please note that all figures I referenced here tonight came directly from your budget books from 2015, 2020, and 2025 on pages 17, 25, and 27 respectively. I can leave those charts here with you. Thanks for your time and consideration.
Thank you.
Good evening. I'm the
Yes.
individual, yep. I'm here as a dedicated Calvert County Public School employee and, more importantly, a committed parent who is deeply invested in the future of our school system. The enactment of the Maryland Blueprint legislation has placed new obligations on our county, requiring funding for various new programs and initiatives. Yet, the state has reduced our funding by $22.5 million because of our increased wealth index resulting from an increase in our taxable assessment base. The state's reason is that with increased funding, there should be corresponding increase in school funding. In stark contrast, St. Mary's County Public Schools didn't suffer even a $1 million loss of state funding, yet they requested an additional $9.5 million for blueprint costs. St. Mary's County Commissioners did what they had to do by raising taxes, understanding that desperate times calls for desperate measures. Are you willing to explore viable solutions instead of shifting the burden onto our already strained school system? The Board of Education has already tightened its budget by cutting millions. If we're not fully funded, the inevitable consequence will be extensive position cuts, resulting in significantly less support for our students and staff. We still have not recovered from the FY 2016 cuts, which among the many cuts then were an assistant principal at both Calvert and Patuxent High. At the Tuesday, May 7th County Commissioner meeting, there was a discussion about the safety concerns in our high schools. Those cuts in 2016 have contributed to our current concerns. Our teacher-to-student and admin-to-student ratios remain higher than 2016 cuts and significantly exceed those of similar Maryland school systems. If we're not appropriately funded, we will have to cut even more positions. According to the 2020 census, we are the 17th wealthiest county in the nation. Ensuring our children's educational needs are met should not be optional. Our children deserve better. Thank you.
Thank you.
Next speaker is Terry Anderson with Solomon's Volunteer Rescue Squad and Fire Department.
Good evening, Commissioners.
Good evening.
My name is Terry Anderson, and I have the honor of serving as President of the Solomon's Volunteer Rescue Squad and Fire Department. With over 12 years of volunteer service across various organizations, I stand before you today to advocate for our department and to express our concerns regarding the budget deficit for fiscal 25 and beyond. We understand the challenges posed by a tightening budget, especially considering the rising costs over the past few years. Our department undergoes a thorough budget review to ensure we are responsible stewards of public funds while meeting the fire EMS needs in our community. It is with disappointment that we acknowledge the delay in removal of funding for our new facility from the capital improvement plan. This project has been in discussion since at least 2017, and its removal comes as a blow to our efforts to serve our community better. Despite this setback, I want to reassure our community that our commitment to serving and protecting them remains steadfast. We will continue to operate from our current facilities to the best of our ability, ensuring prompt responses to emergencies and providing assistance whenever needed. I also want to address the invaluable support we receive from our colleagues in the Career EMS Division. Their dedication and willingness to step up to fill the EMS gaps, not only within our department, but across the county, deserve recognition and gratitude. As volunteerism faces challenges and recruitment becomes more difficult, the assistance provided by our career members is instrumental in ensuring our operations remain sustainable and effective. Moreover, I implore you to carefully consider the proposed changes to the employee benefits, particularly regarding compensation time. These individuals, whether in EMS, law enforcement, dispatch, dedicate themselves to public safety timelessly, often working non-traditional hours in demanding circumstances. Any reductions in their benefits not only impact their livelihoods, but also risk undermining morale and retention within our public safety agencies. In conclusion, I urge the Commissioners to prioritize investments in public safety infrastructure, personnel, and recognizing the vital role they play in safeguarding our community. Let us work together to navigate these challenges, uphold the dignity and respect owed to those who serve on the front lines every day. I have a saying that I would like to pass on. We are Solomon's Volunteer Rescue Squad and Fire Department. We are one team with one mission for our community. Thank you for your attention and consideration.
Thank you.
Next speaker is Leonard Souza, designated speaker of Concerned Residents of Solomons.
Commissioners, I'm Leonard Souza, and I'm speaking on behalf of Concerned Residents of Solomons. Having spent 23 years in budgeting on the White House budget staff, I sympathize with the problems you face and commend your willingness to allow Calvert residents to express our opinions on this difficult subject. That sympathy notwithstanding, I'm opening my comments with a phrase you may consider a fiscal or political obscenity, because I'm suggesting that you raise taxes to meet most of the funding shortfall for Calvert Public Schools. I realize that the budget shortfall you face relates in part to the end of the pilot agreement with Dominion. However, there were problems in Maryland schools that predated the pilot. In 2020, the Kirwan Commission identified problems in virtually every jurisdiction throughout the state. These were that students' national test scores fell significantly lower than in prior decades and ranked at or below the median among 50 states. Maryland has severe teacher shortage and retention problems. Roughly half of the new teachers leave within the first 5 years because of low salaries and poor working conditions. Only about 40% of Maryland's high school graduates meet the state's college readiness standards. The remaining 60% require remedial math and reading to meet career needs. So we have long-standing problems that we need to address. While Calvert may not be suffering the same intensity of problems as other school districts, we still need to raise the quality of education to improve student test scores to make them more competitive with students in higher scoring states when they are pursuing jobs or career opportunities. While you may consider school funding as a cost because you can't use those monies for other purposes, I suggest that you consider them as investments. The Kirwan Commission-inspired Blueprint for Maryland identified the funding requirements that you face, but it also pointed out that there are long-term financial returns from new spending on education that outweigh short-term costs. These include that children who receive good educations are significantly less likely as adults to need social welfare, and thus this would reduce the need for funding these programs. Children who leave schools with good educations are significantly less likely to be incarcerated, thus reducing public expenses for incarceration. On the positive side, studies have shown that within 20 years of graduation, a well-educated ninth grader will pay 40% more in state and local taxes. Let me repeat that. They will pay more in taxes in their working lifetime than students who dropped out of school. This is a healthy return on investment that would keep on giving. So school funding is not a budget cost, but a long-term investment. Forcing Calvert schools to live within current budget constraints would be a false economy. It would result in paying teachers non-competitive salaries, omitting scheduled salary increases, cutting teaching and support positions, not providing adequate counseling, reducing funding for STEM programs, inadequately funding programs for special needs students, and shutting down facilities. Seeming budget savings from reduced spending on education would result in larger numbers of students leaving our schools with inadequate educations and fewer opportunities to become productive citizens. Many communities agree on the need to increase taxes to improve education. Citizens and officials in St. Mary's County recently supported tax increases to meet their schools' funding requirements. In several public meetings in St. Mary's County, parents, teachers, and educators and officials strongly supported tax increases to meet educational needs. Likewise, officials in Fairfax and Arlington counties and Alexandria have agreed to raise taxes to supplement school budgets, and the state of Virginia has done the same. Having worked in budgeting, I really am sympathetic with the tough decisions that you face. But I also learned that budgets reflect priorities and urge you to consider a combination of increasing taxes and reprogramming other funds to meet the needs of Calvert's most vulnerable residents, its students, and the teachers who shape their futures. To paraphrase the signs raised by St. Mary's residents in support of taxes for schools, I would simply assert that Calvert students are worth it. That statement is surrounded by dollar signs. Mr. Norris has a graphic that he will share with you that shows people at the meeting in St. Mary's County supporting the raise in taxes there for education. Thank you for your time and attention.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Next speaker is Joan Thorpe, speaking as an individual.
Good evening, Commissioners. My name is Joan Thorpe. For many years, I worked in finance and budget, giving budget presentations similar to the one you've heard tonight. I know this is a tough budget year, but Calvert County, you can do better than this. I know the county code requires adequate public notice for budget hearings, but the public hearing ads that went into the county papers did not mention potential property or income tax increases, water and sewer increases, or many of the other options that have been presented in the past few days. Yes, the ads did go out the required number of days before the hearing, but they didn't give any indication of this year's overall budget plan. In my opinion, that action does not meet the spirit of proper disclosure. Again, Calvert County, you can do better than this. There was a special meeting of the board to consider water and sewer fee increases that have been discussed for almost a year and a half. These increases were shown to the public only 9 days before tonight's hearing. As the capital connection rates, the consultant added to a prior presentation seemingly at the last minute. The changes they're proposing on that triple these rates. As far as I know, there was no discussion of phasing in these connection fees over time, no meetings with the business community, or a detailed financial analysis of how the numbers were calculated. This was certainly a surprising, even shocking follow-up from Public Works after their January 2023 promise to keep their customers better informed. Calvert County, you can do better than this. Finally, I want to talk about the numbers we are seeing here tonight. I understand it's tough, and 2 days ago, Finance and Budget had a strategy meeting with the board. But again, no advance public notice. There was no revised budget book showing these proposed changes, or even new spreadsheets so that we could see what the impacts would be. As a result, the information provided in the Commissioner's budget document was already out of date. There are many other anomalies about the book, but you get the point. Please do more to keep the public informed. Calvert County, you can do better than this.
Thank you.
Next speaker is Dawn LaBelle, speaking as an individual.
Good evening, Commissioners. I would like to start off by reading to you from your letter to the citizens that you sincerely appreciate the spirit of cooperation in every effort to ensure that the county's primary financial management plan is prudent, responsible, transparent, and manageable. Unfortunately, I'm here to tell you that your financial plan, as it is presented electronically, is none of those. Your data is flawed, it is full of errors, and as of Tuesday's meeting, it's outdated. The numbers are no longer valid. I have numerous detailed examples I could provide to demonstrate my statement, but I only have 2 minutes to speak, so I only address a few. First of all, I asked during the staff recommended proposal why there are no actuals. How can you build a budget without actuals? Is that being responsible and prudent? Again, I ask, are the actuals not available because of the $4 million ERP financial system that the county just implemented? Never got any response to that, no acknowledgement of that. If your document is correct, I have solved your budget problem. How do you transfer almost $14 million from general fund to general fund? That's what you have on page 48 under transfers. There's no corresponding entry to revenues. So if you add the revenue that you would receive from the transfer, you have a surplus of $3 million. On your capital improvement summary, the revenues are $43 million more than the expenses. Why are you borrowing so much money if you have a $43 million revenue surplus? I mean, these are big, basic numbers that you're overlooking. Are they errors? I believe so, but you published them. You're putting them out there as being accurate. There's an indirect charge for services for other revenues. That's $3 million. What is that? That's a large amount of money not to have any explanation for. You've used fund balance. In FY22, it was $80 million. This year, according to Tuesday's presentation, it is under $40 million. That's in 3 years. There are so many other errors in there that I don't have time to go over them. And this makes a big impact on what the budget really is. How do you know? If you consider this financial plan to be prudent, responsible, transparent, and manageable, you need to redefine those terms. Thank you.
Next speaker is Gia Roche, speaking as an individual.
Yes, good evening, commissioners, everybody in the room. This is a follow-up from the May 7th meeting with Public Works and the Water and Sewer. I sent you an email on May 8th. Some of the questions that I have been shown today on your budget proposal here, but I still have a few. So it looks like you are about 20 million in debt or probably to pay. You probably could, maybe with the funds that you get every year, could pay it off in 2 years, is what my understanding is. But it still is something that every year you will be accumulating more debt. And if you don't pay that with what you are getting in 2 years, so there's still, it's just that balance that you will be carrying through. So if I'm calling back to what whomever the gentleman was talking, if you don't get those budgets from capital improvements, fees, and things like that, which I don't think you will, that will fall into the users. So I just want to know how much will the user be paying in water by 2027 that it was mentioned, and how much would impact every resident that is paying for public service. So I don't think it's something that we should be talking about in 2027. I think it's something that we should be projecting right now. And if you could, or maybe from Water and Sewer could answer to my email, I just want to put it in record. Thank you.
Thank you.
Next speaker is Bryce Callis, speaking as an individual.
Good evening, County Commissioners. My name is Bryce Callis. I'm here today speaking as a citizen which supports our public safety providers. Thank you for the opportunity to speak before you tonight, and thank you for providing public safety providers of all divisions increasing and overwhelming support you all have shown. The growth and partnerships they have built between county government and volunteer entities is unmatched and thriving compared to other organizations throughout the region, to include the trust and partnerships which have been built. I see in attendance this evening there are many professionals that serve your county with honor, dignity, and pride, providing 911 and emergency medical services to the residents, tourists, and workers within the county. There are also currently a multitude of public safety employees that cannot be here this evening, providing 911 and EMS services to all of our families and citizens to keep them safe. Further, many of those workers volunteer at our local fire and EMS departments within the county and dedicate their off time to continue providing quality care, showing just how committed they are to the citizens and the service. This in itself is a cost saving to you and your constituents. These selfless employees working alongside of volunteers are ready to respond to any incident at any given time, day or night, while most citizens are sleeping peacefully at home. As EMS providers and 911 dispatchers, they work with the unknown on every call. They are solutionists which assist every agency throughout this county when called upon, from mental health or sickness to trauma and death. They are the people that run in when most are running away during your worst day. They see what most can't handle and harbor these sights and scenes for a lifetime, unknowing when it will one day show up and rear its horrible face, affecting their own mental health. These effects not only affect them, but their families, friends, coworkers who surround them. Career EMS and dispatchers are vital divisions to this community and to the county government. They are exposed to the worst of the worst on a daily basis and continue to be exposed to harmful sicknesses. They are the lifelines connecting our citizens to life-saving care and are dedicated professionals working tirelessly, often sacrificing personal time and rest to serve you. I understand the budget concerns in the county is facing, appreciate your consideration and all the steps in COLAs. However, inflation rates in the state of Maryland have risen over 3% from this time last year. As a citizen, I'm asking for your consideration. Don't take the shortfalls and burden and place it on your dedicated employees' backs. They are the ones keeping our county and citizens alive and well. Foster that team and continue to take care of those taking care of us. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Next speaker is Michael Daly with FOP 109.
Good evening. I'm Michael Daly, the president of the Calvert County Fraternal Order of Police, Lodge Number 109. I'm here to represent the hardworking men and women of our county sheriff's office. Our deputies are the front line of defense, ensuring the safety and security of our community day in and day out. They're the ones who answer the call in times of crisis and who dedicate their lives to protecting and serving our citizens. I want to discuss something crucial to the well-being of our deputies, fair compensation, which includes step increases and cost of living adjustments. Our deputies are not just employees. They're highly trained professionals who continually put themselves in harm's way for the betterment of our community. Step increases recognize the years of service and accumulated expertise our deputies bring to their roles. It's a way to show their appreciation for their dedication and commitment. Law enforcement is an inherently challenging and risky profession, especially in the face of increased crime rates and more serious offenses coming to this county. It's crucial that we can both retain seasoned deputies and draw in fresh talent to tackle these growing challenges. Providing step increases and cost of living adjustments is vital in achieving this goal. This approach ensures our deputies remain competitive in the job market, guaranteeing the strength and stability of our sheriff's office in the fight against rising crime. Policing can be a tough job, both mentally and physically. Our deputies face unique challenges every day. Providing fair compensation, including step increases and cost of living adjustments, is not just about dollars and cents. It's about morale. It's about showing our deputies that their hard work and sacrifices are not only appreciated, but valued. Investing in our deputies is not just the right thing to do, it's also cost effective. Retaining experienced deputies saves money in the long run by reducing turnover and the costs associated with recruitment and training. Moreover, cost of living adjustments ensure that our deputies can maintain a decent standard of living despite the rising cost of necessities. Recently, a pay increase of 9% was implemented to address pay parity issues. This adjustment was necessary due to the lack of competitive pay increases while other agencies continue to raise their salaries. It was said at that time that this gap wouldn't happen again. However, this year, St. Mary's County Sheriff's Office is receiving approximately 6.5% increase, while Maryland State Police Charles County receiving 8%. We're already trailing behind them in terms of pay, and failing to provide our deputies with a step increase and cost of living adjustment will only widen the pay gap further. While Calvert County is undoubtedly a great place to work, we need to ensure that our deputies can afford to live here. Without salary increases to match the rising cost of living, deputies will inevitably start looking for employment elsewhere out of necessity. In conclusion, fair compensation, including step increases and cost of living adjustments, is not just a matter of fairness, it's a matter of public safety and community well-being. Our deputies put their lives on the line every day to protect us. It's crucial that you act now to retain our valuable law enforcement personnel and maintain the high standards of service our community expects. I urge you to prioritize the needs of our deputies, consider the importance of fair compensation, and let's invest in our deputies, strengthen our sheriff's office, and continue to keep our community safe. Thank you.
Thank you.
Next speaker is Stacy Taman with CAESS.
I thought I was later in the list. Good evening, President Hans, Commissioners. My name is Stacy Taman. I'm a 28-year education support professional with Calvert County Public Schools, currently serving as the president of the Calvert Association of Educational Support Staff, and I am also a 46-year resident of the county. You heard Dr. Townsell say just a little over 2 hours ago, we were able to reach a tentative agreement for a 4-year contract for our education support professionals. For those of you who may not know, ESPs include instructional assistants, behavior technicians, secretaries, painters, nurses, building service workers, transportation professionals, cafeteria staff. We are not teachers, but we make the school day happen. We keep the students safe and healthy within our schools and within their learning environments. We are the day-to-day operations that keep the school system functioning. We matter. We are essential. And we are the faces that our students see inside and outside of the classrooms. Many, many, many of us have to hold more than one job to make ends meet. When students have to see new faces within their school buildings because of turnover, it's like meeting a stranger. It reduces the trust and the security that our students have within those walls. We deserve to not only survive, but to thrive within the communities where we work and live. I am asking that you fund the Board of Education's budget request. Thank you for your time.
Thank you. Next speaker is Donna Cox Ostenzo, representing CEA.
Good evening. My name is Donna Cox Ostenzo. I am a lifelong resident of Calvert County. I am a 35-year Calvert County Public School employee. I have devoted more than half of my life to public schools. I was not really sure if I was going to provide public comment this evening or not, but the FY25 budget is like no other. Beginning with the shortfall of $22.5 million from the state of Maryland for public education. And why is that? Delegate Fisher would like you to believe that this is all Governor Moore's fault, that he stole the money from Calvert County. That is simply lies, all lies. Calvert County had a sweet deal, a pilot program with what was Dominion at the time, but is now owned by Berkshire Hathaway, who was paying Calvert County $40, $50 million a year in lieu of paying taxes. But Calvert County let the deal expire. Wes Moore was not governor when the deal was made, nor was he governor when the state law was put into place that determined state funding for public education based upon a wealth index. So why would any responsible elected official try to blame a governor who has only been in office a year? That would be like me standing up here telling the citizens of Calvert County that the 3 most recently elected county commissioners were to blame for this financial crisis. That would be ridiculous, right? But someone let this deal slip through their fingers, and the taxpayers and our public school system are going to pay for this huge Calvert County government blunder. The mission of the county attorney's office is to review all deeds, bonds, contracts, and other legal papers involving the county's interests. I would have thought that the expiration of a pilot program would have been a huge interest of the counties. How was this missed? But because it was missed, taxpayers, like my parents and myself, are going to have to make up a shortfall that they did not create. Our public school system is going to face the possibility of layoffs, reductions in staffing, and educators leaving, creating even more vacancies throughout our schools. Now, who is going to pay? I am a proud educator who will fight for Calvert County Public Schools, but I will not let Calvert County Public Schools off the hook for their huge part in this FY25 debacle of a budget. There is absolutely no excuse that you did not know back in March how much funding the school system was going to need for the upcoming school year. CCPS knew for 2 years the career ladder had to be in place by July 1st. CCPS has known for the last 4 years that they would be negotiating new contracts with CEA and CASE. I understand it makes it very difficult for you, the county commissioners, to present a budget to the citizens of Calvert County when you were only given their presentation an hour and a half ago. Also, very hard for myself to prepare public comment. So, based upon a couple of the slides that I saw this evening, the ways that Dr. Townsell has proposed to make up the $10 million shortfall, if he is forced to do so, many of those cuts on the slides, he cannot unilaterally decide to do. They are subject to collective bargaining. Also, there were some new cuts on those slides that I've never seen before tonight. I would also like to make a comment about the idea that we're way ahead on this contract cycle compared to 4 years ago. I would like to remind everybody that in June of 2020, we were in a pandemic. We got shut down in March. So the fact that we were able to get an agreement reached by the end of June, kudos to us. That we would have been ahead, but it was a pandemic. And I would like to make note of the 2016 date. Again, because I only saw that, I'm going on my memory, but my memory serves to tell me that that was the contract that we were coming out of a recession where we had not seen steps, and we did the build the bridge. So open communication is imperative moving forward, and including CEA and CASE in those discussions is also very important. Thank you.
Thank you.
Our last in-person speaker is Jim Schaefer, representing Schaefer Homes.
Good evening, Commissioners. I'm Jim Schaefer from Schaefer Homes, graduate of Northern High School 2006. Proud to come through the educational system here. I'm sad to hear the status of it, but I would like to lend my services and the MBIA, Maryland Building Industries Association's services to help negate or mitigate some of the deficit in Calvert County. There's been quite an anti-growth or anti-development push in Calvert for quite a while. I think that housing and property, I saw property and income were the top producers for revenue in Calvert County. I think it's time for a smart growth plan in Calvert County. I grew up here. I live in southern Anne Arundel now, so I still frequent. I support Northern High School FBLA. The Calvert Career Center has reached out to me to mentor students on construction. I would love to continue to do that, but there is not much growth in Calvert County to teach people or to retain our talent here that's been educated here. I build homes for all my classmates in different counties. I've been contacted by St. Mary's Economic Development, Charles County Economic Development. All these counties want businesses in their county to grow, and those provide revenue. So I think that it's time to bridge the gap between, Calvert County and the building community. It doesn't need to be wall to wall like Waldorf. I know that's the big fear. I think there needs to be a smart growth plan, which will aid the revenue. So I come as a conduit, and I hope I can be a solution to some of these problems I'm listening to. And it's sad. I have a sister that's a Calvert County teacher. I have a nephew that's a state police officer in Leonardtown, who's probably coming to Prince Frederick at some point. So this community means a lot to me, even though I'm not a resident any longer, because I couldn't find a place to live, to be quite honest with you. So I had to move to southern Anne Arundel with many of my classmates. I would like to provide affordable housing in this area. We have a water bill that's over around 300% increase for capital connection fees, which will affect the town centers. That's where we wanted growth, or where we want to put more affordable housing to retain young professionals. That is where the growth from this county will continue on for the next generation. So my ask is to bridge the gap with the businesses in Calvert County so we can provide revenue. We don't go to St. Mary's, Charles, Anne Arundel, Prince George's. So thank you very much for your time, and I appreciate it.
Thank you.
We have two who have joined us by telephone virtually. If you wish to speak, please use *9 to raise your hand. And while they're doing that, Mr. Cormier has had his hand raised.
Good evening, Commissioners. My name is Joseph Cormier, and I'll be speaking on behalf of Calvert Special Education Citizens Advisory Committee as their chairperson this evening. I want to thank you for having this meeting tonight. Mr. Hance, I want to thank you for your brief description of the pilot programs that we had with Dominion and Exelon. I would again encourage the county to please put that into a larger presentation so that citizens can get a deep dive into where we began with this, what happened, where we're at, where we're going to go with it. Commissioner Grasso, I want to remind you that I've already spoken about the teachers at the central office are our diagnostic prescriptive teachers, our child find and infants and toddlers staff, and our reading and math specialists. They're not just teachers twiddling their thumbs. These are people providing needed skills and supervision at our central office for the entire county. Looking at these cuts that were just described this evening, I am flabbergasted, and I don't understand. Our IEP facilitators and our deans are sorely needed, and from a compliance perspective, I can't imagine not having that staff in place to continue the IEP process for our hundreds of students who get IEP services in the county. You've come to Inclusive Track and Field. You came to the CCAC Awards. You hear me come and talk every week. We have to provide these services for these kids. It is a mandate from the government, from the federal government. And if you cause the county to make these cuts and remove these positions, you're going to pay so much more in lawsuits and civil processes, civil rights violations. So I'm asking you to please fund the school system and give the citizens the information on the pilot programs and why they're affecting the budget the way they are. I want to appreciate that the different levels of government participate with the school system. Sheriff Cox has been amazing working with us with things. The library system has been amazing working for the work-based learning students. We can do more. We can build out our pipeline for volunteer firefighters through the high schools. We can do more. We can be better. Union strong. Thank you so much. Have a great evening.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Again, those joining by telephone, please press *9 to raise your hand. Caller with last four digits 4262. Please press *6 to unmute yourself. Identify yourself and whether speaking as an individual or as the designated representative of a group.
Hello, Commissioners and fellow citizens. Hopefully you can hear me now. I'm not used to doing this. My name is Bob Estes. A couple of things that I haven't heard about would be what happens to our bond rating if we don't do a good job on getting this budget issue under control, because if we lose our bond rating, that's going to be more costs for pretty much all kinds of future projects and perhaps even some current projects. A second thing, I heard about a little earlier about we need smart growth or more growth or whatever. I have to remind you that it's fairly well known that bedroom communities end up in trouble if they're out of balance with local businesses. And right now, that's roughly where we are. Every dwelling unit costs close to $2,000 every year in basically services that don't get paid for. So building more houses and bringing in more people is not necessarily cost effective Maybe you don't believe that number, maybe you think it's $1,000 a year, but it's still a standing amount of money, and it's the same amount for every house every year in services. So consider that when you're considering how do we control growth, how do we sustain growth, how are we smart about these things. I know that we're relying on adequate public facilities as a dam to stem the tide, but there may be something more you need to do in these times of difficult budgets. Thank you for your time.
Thank you.
Caller with the last four digits, 9535, please identify yourself and whether speaking as an individual or as the designated representative of a group. You'll have to press *6 to unmute yourself.
Good evening, Commissioners. My name is Dean Hamilton. I'm a 23-year resident of Calvert County, and I'm calling to give my 2 cents worth. I'd like to thank y'all very much for doing this and paying attention to the figures and looking over the facts and trying to keep our county in line and above board. Some of the things that have concerned me tonight is there have been a couple citizens up there that have pointed out some mistakes. And when I say mistakes, if there are $3 or $4 million in a line item or something that has been done incorrectly, I think we have to be fiduciary responsible and investigate those before voting on a budget and approving something when these possible mistakes are still out there. The people that came up there were very, very serious about the allegations of these mistakes, and the one lady had facts and figures line by line. I don't see any reason why she can't be met with personally and given some extra time to go over what she has found to be mistakes in her opinion, just to investigate that the money is not being misplaced and not being misused. The other lady that was the educator, she had some very good points about the education budget and some stuff that was mistakes there as well. I don't think we're at a point where you can vote and put this forward without going back and investigating the stuff that's been pointed out. So that's my 2 cents. If you have to raise my property taxes, I'm willing. I love this county, and I think we voted the right people up there on that board. This is tough times, and I thank y'all for taking this on, and have a good evening.
Thank you.
Caller 4630 has not raised their hand, but if you wish to speak, please press *6 to unmute yourself. It appears that's everyone.
Thank you. And we do appreciate everybody's comments, and we do take them serious. I do have to address one comment. There was no boondoggle in the pilot situation. We could have signed a pilot for a lot less revenue. So if the citizens out there were willing to want us to sign a pilot and for a lot less money, we could have done that. But we didn't believe that was physically, financially prudent. Couldn't leave that much money on the table.
If I could add something, Mr. President, we also hired a consultant to work with us long in this project. It was not taken lightly. It was not neglected. But being it was the first time working with this organization, we hired a consultant, and in the middle of the negotiations that are still going on, this shortfall happened. So there's no neglect of anybody. It's still an ongoing negotiation, and if we would, and stop me if I'm wrong, if we would have just signed, we would have already hurt ourselves, what, $5 million a year?
More than that.
I mean, just on the initial thing, SDET came back another $5 million. So, you know, the criticism when I came on, when the place was being built, was that the commissioners gave away the farm. I wasn't here for that. But I heard over and over and over and over again what a bad job was done. So when the negotiations came up again, we hired a firm. That's what they do. These professional consultants, and That's the process that's being worked through right now.
And not at the last minute. We allowed ample time.
Thank you, Mr. President.
So, we need a motion to keep the record open?
Okay, I've got a motion for you, Mr. President. I move that we leave the record open through 5 PM, Monday, June 3rd, 2024.
Second?
I have a motion and a second to leave the record open until 5 PM, June 3rd. Is there any discussion on that motion?
None.
Hearing none. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Is there a motion to adjourn?
So moved.
Second. I have a motion and a second that we adjourn. Any discussion on that motion? Hearing none. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Everyone, thank you very much for your participation. Have a great evening.